My stepmother brought her kids to measure rooms in my inherited house while telling everyone I'm an ungrateful brat who doesn't deserve my dead father's home. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. 29M, never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get this off my chest before I lose my mind. My father passed away 3 weeks ago after a brief battle with cancer, and what should be a time of mourning has turned into an absolute nightmare thanks to my stepmother Patricia, 48F. Let me give you some background. My mother died when I was 15, and it was just Dad and me for over a decade. We were incredibly close. He was my best friend, my mentor, everything. The house we lived in had been in our family for 3 generations. My great-grandfather built it with his own hands in 1952, and it's where Dad grew up, where I grew up, where all our memories lived. 2.5 years ago, Dad met Patricia at a charity golf tournament. She seemed nice enough at first, a widow with 2 kids of her own, Brian, 24M, and Ashley, 22F. Dad was lonely, I get that. He deserved companionship after all those years alone. They dated for 6 months before getting married in a small ceremony. I was happy for him, genuinely. He seemed lighter, smiled more. But things changed quickly after the wedding. Patricia started making comments about the house being outdated and needing a woman's touch. She redecorated room by room, boxing up family photos and heirlooms, replacing them with her own style. When I visited, I barely recognized the place anymore. Dad seemed uncomfortable with some changes but went along with it. Happy wife, happy life, he'd say with a forced smile. Then came the diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave him 3 months. He lasted 2. Those final weeks were hell. Patricia controlled who could visit and when. She'd hover during my visits, interrupting our conversations, insisting Dad needed rest whenever we started talking about anything meaningful. I wanted to have those final father-son conversations, to tell him everything he meant to me, but she made it nearly impossible. The worst part, 2 weeks before he died, when he was barely conscious, she brought in a lawyer to update some paperwork. I only found out what that was about after the funeral. Which brings me to now. Last week, we met with Dad's attorney, Mr. Thompson, who'd handled our family's legal matters for 20 years. That's when I learned about the new will, the one signed when Dad could barely hold a pen. The house, our family home, was left entirely to Patricia. Not to me, his only biological child. To her. Mr. Thompson looked as shocked as I felt. He pulled me aside after and said Dad had come to him a year ago, clear-minded and healthy, with explicit instructions that the house would go to me. He'd even written a letter explaining it was important to keep it in the family bloodline. But this new will, technically valid despite the circumstances, superseded everything. Patricia sat there with this smug smile, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. Your father wanted to make sure his family was taken care of, she said. All of his family. I lost it. I asked her how she could do this, how she could manipulate a dying man. She started crying, real tears this time, and said I was being cruel, that Dad loved her and her children, that we were a blended family now. Besides, she added, composing herself remarkably quickly, you have your own apartment. Brian and Ashley need somewhere stable to live. Her kids don't even live there. Brian lives with his girlfriend 2 states away, and Ashley's in college dorms. They visit maybe twice a year. I stormed out of that office feeling like I'd been punched in the gut repeatedly. Not only had I lost my father, but now I was losing my childhood home, my family's legacy, to a woman who'd known him for less than 3 years. The house isn't even about money for me. Yes, it's worth probably $400,000 in today's market, but that's irrelevant. It's about the memories. My height marks on the doorframe, the tree fort Dad and I built in the backyard, my mother's rose garden that I've maintained for 14 years. It's about keeping my promise to my grandmother that the house would stay in the family. But apparently, none of that matters to Patricia. Or legally, to anyone else. Update 1, 2 weeks later. I can't believe I'm back here already, but things have escalated beyond anything I imagined. After my initial post, I took your advice and hired my own attorney, Jennifer Stevens, who specializes in estate disputes. She reviewed everything and confirmed what I feared. While the circumstances of the will signing are suspicious, proving undue influence is an uphill battle. But that's not why I'm updating. It's what Patricia has done since then that has me seeing red. It started with a family barbecue at my Uncle Robert's house this past weekend. Dad's siblings always host a get-together on the last Sunday of each month, a tradition going back decades. I almost didn't go. Seeing everyone without Dad felt too raw, but my Aunt Linda convinced me it would be good to be surrounded by family. Big mistake. I walked in to find Patricia holding court in the living room, surrounded by my relatives, dabbing at her eyes while she spoke. I caught the tail end. Always been difficult. Even when Thomas was alive, God rest his soul, James never accepted us as family. His father tried so hard to bring us together. My cousin Michael shot me a sympathetic look as I froze in the doorway. Patricia noticed me and raised her voice slightly, ensuring I'd hear every word. Thomas told me repeatedly how disappointed he was in James's attitude. He said James was selfish, ungrateful, couldn't see past his own grief about his mother to accept new family members. She paused for effect, looking directly at me. He even said he worried James would contest the will out of spite. I couldn't stay silent. That's a lie, and you know it. The room went quiet. Patricia's tears dried up instantly, replaced by a cold stare. Is it? Then why did your father feel the need to specifically tell Mr. Thompson that he was of sound mind when he updated his will? Why did he make sure to include a no-contest clause? I hadn't known about the no-contest clause. Jennifer had mentioned it might exist but hadn't confirmed it yet. If I challenged the will and lost, I'd get nothing. Not even the personal items Dad had left me. My father was dying, I said, my voice shaking. He could barely recognize people at the end. You took advantage of that. How dare you? Patricia stood, full drama mode engaged. Your father loved me. He loved Brian and Ashley like they were his own. Just because you couldn't stand sharing him doesn't mean you get to rewrite history. My Aunt Linda tried to interject. Patricia, surely there's a way to. To what? Patricia rounded on her. To appease James's tantrum? Thomas left the house to me because he knew I'd take care of it, not sell it for quick cash like James would. I would never sell that house. I shouted. It's been in our family for 70 years. Your family, Patricia corrected. Not our family. See? You still don't consider us family even now. Your father saw that. It broke his heart. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, pausing for one final blow. You know what he told me near the end? He said his biggest regret was not being able to help you move past your selfishness. He said he hoped losing the house might finally teach you that family isn't about blood, it's about love. She left, and the room erupted in whispers. Some relatives looked at me with pity, others with uncertainty. Had Dad really said those things? He'd been on so much morphine at the end, sometimes he didn't recognize me. But would he have said I was selfish? Ungrateful? My Uncle Robert pulled me aside. Don't let her get in your head, son. Your dad talked about you constantly, always with pride. 2 months ago, he was at this very barbecue, bragging about your promotion at work. But the damage was done. I could see it in some relatives' eyes. That seed of doubt Patricia had planted. Was I being selfish? Was I dishonoring Dad's memory by fighting this? Jennifer called yesterday with more bad news. The no-contest clause is real and ironclad. If I challenge and lose, I forfeit even the $50,000 in savings bonds Dad left me. Patricia made sure to have that included in the new will. But she also found something interesting. The lawyer Patricia used for the new will? He's her nephew by marriage. He's licensed, so it's technically legal, but it's sketchy as hell. Jennifer's investigating whether proper protocols were followed, whether Dad was medically evaluated for competency, whether witnesses were properly vetted. It's thin, she warned me. But it's something. I'm torn between fighting and potentially losing everything, or accepting this injustice and trying to move on. But how do you move on when someone is living in your childhood home, erasing your family's presence day by day? Dad, if you can hear me somehow, I need to know, did you really want this? Or did she steal your final wishes along with everything else? Update 2, 1 month later. I thought I'd hit rock bottom with this situation. I was wrong. Patricia has escalated things to a level I never imagined possible, and I'm absolutely livid. It started when my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who's lived next door to our family home for 30 years, called me yesterday morning. James, dear, I thought you should know there's a lot of activity at your father's house. I think Patricia is having some kind of party. I drove over immediately, my stomach in knots. What I found was worse than a party. Patricia was hosting an open house, not to sell, but to show off her home to her friends and family. There were at least 20 cars parked along the street. Through the windows, I could see people touring rooms, Patricia gesturing grandly as she led them around. But here's what made my blood boil. Brian and Ashley were there with measuring tapes and notebooks, going room to room like they were planning renovations. I stood on the sidewalk, Patricia had already threatened me with trespassing charges if I set foot on the property, watching strangers traipse through my family home. Mrs. Chen joined me, patting my arm sympathetically. She had contractors here all week, Mrs. Chen informed me. They were looking at the foundation, the roof. I heard her mention something about an addition. An addition to my great-grandfather's perfectly crafted home. Unable to stand it anymore, I called out to Ashley as she emerged to grab something from her car. She at least had the decency to look uncomfortable when she saw me. "Ashley, what's going on?" She glanced back at the house nervously. "Mom's just showing family the house. Brian and I are figuring out which rooms we want when we move in." "Move in? I thought you both had your own places." She shrugged. "Plans change. Mom says family should stick together, especially now." Brian appeared behind her, less diplomatic. "Problem, James. You're planning to move into my family home?" He smirked. "It's not your home. It's Mom's. And she wants her actual children close by." "Dad was my actual father," I shot back. "For all the good it did him," Brian said. "Mom told us how you treated him the last few years. Barely visiting, jealous of his happiness. At least we appreciated what he tried to do for this family." I wanted to scream that I'd visited Dad every single week until Patricia started limiting access, that I'd been the one taking him to chemo appointments until she insisted on doing it herself, that I'd supported his marriage until she started erasing our family history. But what was the point? She'd poisoned them against me too. That's when Patricia emerged, flanked by several women I didn't recognize. She saw me and her face lit up with false concern. "James. How wonderful. Ladies, this is Thomas's son I was telling you about." She turned to her friends with a stage whisper that carried clearly across the yard. "The one who's been having such a hard time accepting his father's wishes." One of the women, dripping in jewelry, gave me a pitying look. "It must be so difficult, dear. But I'm sure your father knew what was best." Patricia glided closer, but stayed on the property line. "I was just telling everyone how generous Thomas was. He could have left everything to his biological son, but he understood that real family is about more than DNA. He wanted to make sure all his children were taken care of." "I'm his only child," I said through gritted teeth. "Oh, James." She shook her head sadly. "This is exactly what your father was talking about. This inability to share, to accept others. He told me once that your mother would be so disappointed in how closed off you'd become. That was too far. Don't you dare bring my mother into this. You didn't know her. You barely knew my father." "I knew him well enough for him to choose me," she said sweetly. "To trust me with his legacy. He knew I'd take care of this house, fill it with family and love, not let it sit as some kind of museum to the past." Brian stepped forward. "Mom, should I call the police? He seems agitated." I laughed bitterly. "For standing on a public sidewalk?" Patricia touched Brian's arm gently. "No, dear. James is grieving. We need to be patient with him, like your stepfather would have wanted. Though," she raised her voice again, ensuring her audience heard, "Thomas did warn me this might happen. He said James had never learned to let go, to move forward. He hoped leaving the house to someone who'd truly appreciate it might finally help James grow." Her friends murmured sympathetically. I heard one whisper about ungrateful children, and another about how money brings out the worst in people. "The house isn't about money," I said loudly. "It's about family history. My great-grandfather built this house, yes," Patricia interrupted. "Such a lovely story. I've been researching the history, actually. Did you know your great-grandfather intended it to be filled with children? He built 4 bedrooms hoping for a large family. How sad that it's been so empty these recent years. But don't worry, Brian and Ashley will fix that. They're both planning to start families soon." Ashley shifted uncomfortably. As far as I knew, she wasn't even dating anyone seriously. But Patricia was painting a picture for her audience. The generous stepmother giving the family home new life versus the selfish biological son who wanted to hoard it. "In fact," Patricia continued, "we're planning to restore the house to its original purpose. A real family home again. Your great-grandfather would be so pleased, don't you think?" I couldn't respond. Anything I said would be twisted, used as evidence of my supposed bitterness and inability to accept my father's wishes. Mrs. Chen spoke up suddenly. "I remember when Thomas brought baby James home from the hospital to this house. He was so proud. Said his son would grow up here just like he did." Patricia's smile faltered for just a moment. "Yes, well, times change. Thomas evolved in his thinking. He realized family is what you make it, not what you're born into. With that, she ushered her group back inside, but not before Brian made a point of stretching a measuring tape across the front porch, jotting down numbers while staring at me. I stayed there for another hour, watching strangers walk through my childhood home, seeing Brian and Ashley plan their takeover of rooms that held 30 years of my memories. Mrs. Chen stayed with me, occasionally squeezing my shoulder. "Your father would be horrified," she said quietly. "Just last year, he told me he was so glad the house would stay with you, that you'd raise your own children here someday." Jennifer called me this evening with a small update. She's found 2 nurses willing to testify about Dad's mental state in his final weeks. They remember Patricia limiting visitors and being present for all medical consultations, often speaking for Dad even when he could speak for himself. It's not much, but it's building a pattern. But the no contest clause looms large. Do I risk everything on the testimony of 2 nurses? Or do I walk away and let Patricia and her children live out their fantasy of being Dad's real family? I keep hearing her words, "Grateful children would have shared willingly." As if gratitude means rolling over while someone steals your birthright. As if love means accepting injustice with a smile. Dad, I'm trying to honor your memory, but I don't know what that means anymore. Did she twist your final days so thoroughly that you believed her lies about me? Or are these just her words in your mouth, one final manipulation? I guess I'll never know. Update 3, 6 weeks later. This will likely be my final update on the situation, and I never imagined it would end quite like this. Karma, it seems, has a sense of poetic justice. After my last post, I was ready to give up. The emotional toll of fighting Patricia while grieving my father was destroying me. I'd lost weight, couldn't sleep, and my work was suffering. Jennifer advised that while we had a case, it was risky. The no contest clause meant I could lose everything, including the personal items and money Dad left me. I decided to try one last thing, a direct conversation with Patricia, recorded legally with Jennifer present. Maybe I could appeal to whatever humanity she had left, or at least get her on record saying something incriminating. We met at a neutral location, Jennifer's office, last Tuesday. Patricia showed up with Brian, but not Ashley. She looked different, tired, stressed, her perfectly maintained appearance showing cracks. "I'm willing to discuss a compromise," I started. "The house stays with you, but I get first right of refusal if you ever sell. And I'd like access to collect family photos and heirlooms that belong to my mother and grandparents." Patricia laughed, but it sounded forced. "Still trying to control things from beyond your reach? Your father's wishes were clear." "Were they?" Jennifer interjected. "Because we've spoken to several witnesses who suggest Mr. Anderson wasn't in any condition to make informed decisions in his final weeks." "Witnesses can say whatever they want," Brian snapped. "The will is legal." That's when Patricia's mask slipped slightly. "Besides, it's too late for compromises. We're already making changes to the property." "What kind of changes?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. She straightened, regaining her composure. "The kind that make it a proper family home. We're converting the basement into an apartment for Brian, adding a pool house for when Ashley visits, and modernizing that outdated kitchen." My heart sank. Dad's workshop was in that basement. My mother's kitchen, with its original 1950s cabinets my great-grandmother had picked out, would be gutted. "You need permits for structural changes," Jennifer noted. Patricia waved dismissively. "All taken care of. My nephew, the lawyer, his brother-in-law is a contractor. Family helps family." That's when things got interesting. Jennifer made a note and asked, "The same nephew who prepared the new will?" "Yes, Kevin has been so helpful through all this." Jennifer and I exchanged glances. She pressed further. "And the contractor brother-in-law, he's giving you a good deal?" Patricia preened. "Family discount. He owes Kevin a favor anyway from some legal trouble Kevin helped him with last year." More notes. Jennifer was onto something. The meeting ended with no compromise. Patricia made it clear she intended to erase every trace of my family from that house. As she left, she couldn't resist one final dig. "Your father would be so proud to see his house full of life again, instead of being a shrine to the past." That was 2 weeks ago. What Patricia didn't know was that Jennifer had been investigating Kevin the lawyer nephew and his contractor brother-in-law. What she found was a goldmine. Kevin, it turns out, had been disciplined by the Bar Association twice for ethics violations. The contractor brother-in-law? Unlicensed, operating under someone else's contractor license fraudulently. The legal trouble Kevin helped him with? Construction fraud charges that were mysteriously dropped. But here's the beautiful part. Patricia had already started renovations without proper permits, using an unlicensed contractor, based on plans that required city approval she hadn't obtained. The city got an anonymous tip, not from me, actually. Mrs. Chen took that upon herself, and showed up to find major structural work being done on a historical property without authorization. They shut everything down immediately. The fine started at $50,000 and climbing. Worse for Patricia, they discovered the contractor had been cutting corners. The foundation work they'd started was not up to code and had actually damaged the original structure. Then came the domino effect. The investigation into the illegal construction led to questions about how Patricia was paying for it. She'd taken out a large loan against the house, which she could do as the owner, but the loan application contained false information about her income and assets. Jennifer pounced on this. We filed a formal complaint about Kevin's involvement in the will preparation, citing his ethics violations and the appearance of a quid pro quo arrangement with the construction work. The Bar Association opened an investigation. Suddenly, Patricia was drowning in legal troubles. The city wanted the house restored to its original condition, at her expense. The bank was investigating the fraudulent loan application. Kevin was under scrutiny and quickly distanced himself from the situation, claiming he'd been misled about the circumstances of the will signing. That's when Ashley called me. "James, I need to talk to you." Without Mom knowing. We met at a coffee shop, and Ashley looked miserable. "I never wanted any of this," she started. "When Mom married your dad, I thought it was nice she'd found someone. But then she started talking about the house, about money, about securing our futures." She pulled out her phone and showed me text messages from Patricia dating back to right after Dad's diagnosis. They were damning. Patricia discussing how to ensure the house stays with us, mentions of working on Thomas, and getting him to see things our way, even a message saying, "Kevin says if we can get him to sign during a lucid moment, it'll hold up." "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. "Because what she's doing is wrong. Your dad was a good man. He talked about you constantly, showed me pictures of you and him when you were little. He never said any of those horrible things Mom claims. She made it all up. Would you be willing to testify to that?" She nodded. "I can't be part of this anymore. Brian's all in, he sees dollar signs. But I remember your dad asking me, just a few weeks before he died, to make sure you got his watch collection. He was very specific about it. Mom told me he was confused, not to listen." Armed with Ashley's testimony and the text messages, Jennifer felt we had enough to challenge the will without looking merely vindictive. The ethics investigation into Kevin was our opening. If he was found to have acted improperly, the will could be invalidated. Last Monday, we got word. Kevin, facing disbarment, admitted to irregularities in the will preparation. He couldn't confirm that proper protocols were followed regarding Dad's mental capacity. He also admitted Patricia had promised him a finder's fee once the house renovations were complete and she refinanced. The judge ordered a full review of the will's validity. Patricia, drowning in fines and facing fraud charges, couldn't afford a proper legal defense. Her house of cards was collapsing. Yesterday, we reached a settlement. Patricia agreed to vacate the house immediately and relinquish all claims to it. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue criminal charges for elder abuse and fraud. She gets to keep the life insurance payout she received as Dad's spouse, about $100,000, but she has to use most of it to pay for the restoration of the damage her illegal renovations caused. The house comes back to me, battered but standing. The basement workshop is partially demolished. Mom's kitchen has holes in the walls, but the bones are still there. My family home survived Patricia's assault, just as our family memories survived her attempts to erase them. Ashley has been cut off by Patricia and Brian, but she says it's a relief. She's been helping me sort through the house, finding things Patricia had boxed up and hidden. We found my parents' wedding album in the attic, my baby pictures stuffed in a crawlspace, Dad's military medals thrown in a box marked garage sale. Brian sent me a nasty message calling me every name in the book, saying I destroyed their family. The irony isn't lost on me. The same man who said I wasn't Dad's actual child suddenly cares about destroying families. Patricia herself has been silent. Word is she's staying with her sister in another state, facing potential criminal charges if she returns. The contractor brother-in-law is facing his own legal troubles. Kevin is likely to be disbarred. As for me, I'm spending my evenings and weekends at the house, slowly putting it back together. Mrs. Chen brings me dinner sometimes, sharing stories about my parents and grandparents. Last night, she told me about how my dad helped her husband build their fence 30 years ago, how my mom would share vegetables from her garden. I found a letter while cleaning out Dad's office, one Patricia had missed. It was dated a month before his diagnosis, addressed to me but never sent. James, if you're reading this, it means I've finally worked up the courage to have an important conversation with you. The house should be yours when I'm gone. It's not just property, it's our family's history, our roots. I know Patricia has mentioned wanting to modernize things, but I hope you'll keep its character, its memories. You've been the best son a father could ask for. Watching you grow up in the same rooms where I grew up has been one of my life's greatest joys. I hope someday you'll watch your own children play in the backyard where you learn to throw a baseball. Patricia is a good woman, but she doesn't understand what this house means to us. She sees old, we see history. She sees outdated, we see character. Make sure she knows the house stays with you. I'll make it official with Thompson next week. All my love, Dad. He never made it to Thompson's office. The diagnosis came 3 days later, and Patricia took control of everything so quickly. But his wishes were clear, just as I knew they would be. The house is mine again, or will be once the legal dust settles. It's damaged, like I am, but we're both still standing. I'm honoring Dad's real wishes, not the ones Patricia fabricated, but the ones he wrote when his mind was clear and his heart was full. To those who asked if I was being ungrateful, if I should have just accepted things, thank you for pushing me to fight. Being grateful doesn't mean being a doormat. Loving family doesn't mean letting them steal from you. And honoring your father's memory sometimes means fighting against those who would corrupt it. Dad, I got our house back. I'm going to restore it properly, fill it with the family photos Patricia tried to hide, tend to Mom's garden that Patricia let die. And someday, just like you hoped, I'll teach my own kids to throw a baseball in our backyard. The house is scarred but not broken. The family legacy continues. Some gifts are worth fighting for. Final update, 3 months later. I wasn't planning to update again, but I felt you all deserved to know how everything ultimately resolved. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected ways. The house restoration is nearly complete. The contractor I hired, a legitimate one, found something interesting during the repairs. Patricia's unlicensed contractor had knocked out a wall in the basement, and behind it was a hidden storage area my great-grandfather had built. Inside were family treasures I never knew existed, his immigration papers, my great-grandmother's jewelry, photographs dating back to the 1920s, and incredibly, war bonds purchased in my name when I was born, now worth nearly $30,000. But that's not the most poetic part. Remember Kevin, the nephew lawyer? His bar association investigation uncovered a pattern of elder financial abuse spanning 6 estates. Patricia's name came up in 2 others, elderly men she'd befriended who'd changed their wills shortly before death. She never married them, but she was listed as a beneficiary. Both families had complained, but nothing was proven until now. The district attorney opened a criminal investigation. Patricia was arrested last month on charges of elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Brian was named as an accomplice in the home renovation fraud. They're both facing serious jail time. Ashley has become an unexpected ally and friend. She testified in the criminal case about her mother's pattern of behavior. She told me Patricia had done something similar with her and Brian's father, though not to the same extent. He'd left them more than they should have received, and his other children from a first marriage had always suspected manipulation. I was too young to see it then, Ashley told me. But watching her do it to your dad, seeing how calculated it was, I couldn't pretend anymore. The criminal case revealed Patricia had nearly $500,000 in debt from failed business ventures and gambling. My father wasn't her first target, just her most successful one. The prosecutor showed a clear pattern. Patricia would target lonely widowers with valuable estates, marry them quickly, isolate them from family, and ensure she was the primary beneficiary. My dad was victim number 3. Last week was the criminal trial. I testified about Dad's condition, the isolation tactics, the sudden will change. The nurses testified about Patricia limiting access and Dad's confusion in his final days. But the most damaging testimony came from Kevin himself, who took a plea deal. He detailed how Patricia had coached him on exactly what to say and do to make the will seem legitimate, how they'd waited for a moment when Dad was lucid enough to sign but medicated enough to be suggestible. Patricia was found guilty on all counts. The judge, in his sentencing remarks, called her actions a calculated and cruel exploitation of vulnerable individuals in their final days. She got 15 years, with possibility of parole in 7. Brian got 3 years for his role in the construction fraud. At the sentencing, Patricia tried one last manipulation. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I really did love your father, James. Everything just got out of hand." I didn't respond. We both knew the truth. The house is mine now, free and clear. More than that, it's becoming what Dad wanted, a home full of life and family. I host the monthly family barbecues now. My Uncle Robert helps me maintain the garden. My cousin's kids play in the same treehouse where I played 30 years ago. I've started dating someone. Jennifer's paralegal, actually. Sarah sat through every meeting, heard every detail of this mess, and still wanted to go to coffee with me afterward. She understands why the house means so much, understands that it's not about property value but about preserving something precious. We spend weekends working on projects together, bringing the house fully back to life. Mrs. Chen told me something last week that brought me to tears. Your father would be so proud, she said. Not just that you saved the house, but how you fought, with integrity, with determination, without becoming bitter like Patricia. I framed Dad's unsent letter and hung it in his office, now my office. Every morning, I read his words, "You've been the best son a father could ask for." Those words kept me going when Patricia tried to convince the world otherwise. To everyone who followed this story, who offered advice and support, thank you. You helped me see that fighting for what's right isn't ungrateful or selfish. Sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do. Patricia called me ungrateful. She was right in a way. I was ungrateful for her lies, her manipulation, her cruelty. I was ungrateful for her attempt to steal my father's legacy and rewrite his final wishes. But I'm grateful for so much more, for 30 years with an incredible father, for a family home that survived an assault on its history, for neighbors and relatives who knew the truth, for Ashley's courage in coming forward, for a legal system that eventually saw through the deception. Most of all, I'm grateful Dad's real wishes were honored in the end. Not the words Patricia put in his mouth, but the love and legacy he spent a lifetime building. The house stands strong, filled with photographs Patricia tried to hide, echoing with memories she tried to erase. My family's story continues, unbroken despite her efforts. Dad, we won. More importantly, we won the right way, with truth, not manipulation, with justice, not revenge, with love for what you built, not greed for what we could take. Your real family legacy lives on. And I promise, it always will.